Hello, my name is Kelly Bluen. I am a certified Zentangle teacher. Welcome to episode 9 of my Coastal Calm series. Today I've got my little sketchbook, my Micron 05 pen. I have a graphite pencil, and my blending tool today is a Q-tip. And then I have a piece of watercolor paper cut out into a 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch square. Okay? All of these, well, the pen and pencil are available on Zentangle.com, and the real blending tools, if you don't want to use a Q-tip, are also available on Zentangle.com. Okay, let's open up a sketchbook. Any sketchbook you have will work. And we are going to go to a new page and write episode 9. And we're going to do one tangle today. Throughout this week, we've been doing a lot of doubles. Yesterday was 3 tangles, but we're just going to do one today. And it is called conch, like a conch shell. There's actually 2 that I know of, 2 tangles called conch. One is with a C, one is with a K. And I think we're going to do the C one next week. So we'll do this one today. This one is by Lori. And I think it's Manusian, a CZT. All right, this is a really fun one, but it does take a little bit of practice, so don't be afraid to do it a few times to kind of get the hang of it. All right, first of all, I just want to show you with my pencil, the basic shape we are going for is going to be kind of a triangle, okay? Just so as we're drawing it, you kind of get the idea. And then the first thing we're going to do is this like curved line. And when we do it, it's going to be kind of like that part of the triangle. And then we're going to add things here and add things here. Okay, just to sort of give you an idea. And if you want, you can actually make one. I'm going to make it bigger though. You can make a triangle just so you have the idea of the shape. Okay, I'm gonna go to my pen now, and I'm gonna start in this corner, and I'm gonna loop up here, not loop, but make an arch up here, and then curve around and stop. Arch up, curl around, stop. And you would not need to do this in pencil. It's just a guide. Once you have this pretty curve with a cute little curve here, we're going to take this part and we're going to make it into kind of like an upside down teardrop. So it's going to be curved, but then it's going to tuck in like that. So tuck it in and then ink that little thing in. Okay, you got that? All right, now we're going to go into this little piece here, and we're going to do a curve that's going to go over this and then tuck in over here. So basically just this shape, like a backward C. So from here over to here. Just kind of giving it a little top. Okay, now from here, we're gonna curve around and then tuck up into here. So just kind of come around and tuck it in. Okay, underneath that, I'm gonna put in another little curved, like it's almost like part of a circle, but it's gonna be like squished and coming out from this one. So watch what I do. I'm gonna go in a little bit here. I'm gonna come out, touch that line, come around and tuck in. And I want it to be just slightly smaller than this one here. So what we're kind of going for is this type of a look. All these repeating C shapes. And they're going to get a little bit smaller as we get down to this corner. So I did that one. I'm going to do another one. I'm going to start up here, come around and squish in. Come around and squish in. And get smaller and smaller. And then I'm going to ink in these little areas that were left between those little squished shapes and that first line. Okay, got that? That's the hardest part. Now we're just going to be working on this like triangular shape. And it doesn't matter if your triangular shape goes straight out or it kind of curves to the side or the other side. Doesn't matter, but now we're gonna put in this shape. It's gonna be like a squared curve. Does that make sense? Gonna have like, not straight edges, but a little more straight down. So I'm gonna go like this. I'm gonna come from here and I'm gonna go over and then come down. Like I gave it a little hat. Then I'm going to go in a little bit, go up, over, and down. And I'm coming in a little bit here and a little bit here because we're making that triangular shape. Up, over, down, up, over, down, and then just get smaller and smaller like that. You did it. Okay, then we're going to take every other space. So I'm going to skip this one and go to this one. And I'm going to put a circle in here, an orb, kind of big. And then I'm going to do this, where I make these little C shapes like coming off of it. And I'm going to keep squeezing in these little rounded shapes. And so instead of looking like this, like all in a row, it's going to be more like this. It's very subtle and you do what you want, but that's what I'm doing. Just kind of making these little C shapes coming off. And then just taking my pen and filling in if there's any little tiny spaces left over. Skip one, do the next one. This is our practice page, so don't worry about messing it up. It's all good. I'm gonna do this one up here as well. And that is it. That is conch. That's our conch shell. I love it. All right, I'm going to head over to the tile. If you need to pause and practice some more, go ahead. All right, I'm going to start with my pencil. I'm going to put a dot in each of the four corners. And then I'm going to connect those, making a frame around my piece. So you can do this organically by just starting to draw it and see where it leads. Or if you want, you can put in that kind of triangular shape to give yourself an idea and also to make it kind of large. This is taking up a pretty big chunk of my tile. Okay, I'm gonna start in this bottom corner. I'm gonna do that curved shape like this, and then that curly Q at the end. And then remember we put in that little like upside down little raindrop or teardrop by curving that and curling it in. And inking in that little spot. And then we need to put on that little cap that goes from the side of this one over to here. And after we do that, we just kind of continue this line around and then tuck it in. And then I'm going to do those C shapes coming off of this one and coming in, going smaller each time. That first part's the trickiest, and then it's smooth sailing after that. I'm going to take my pen and ink in these little areas that are left behind. And now we're going to do this part here. It's up to you how wide you want them to be. It's up to you on the ends if you want them to be kind of straight or you want them to be a little more curled or curved. You play, you decide. Okay, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to come up, around, and down. Then I go in a little bit, up, over, down. And don't overthink this part. I'm going to kind of curve mine a little bit just for fun. So see how I just sort of made this wider to make it go up a little bit? Gave a little bit of personality. Or I could have tipped it kind of the other way and gone over the frame a bit. All right, I'm gonna skip the first line, go to the next one. I'm gonna put in that first little circle or orb right there. And then I'm just doing the letter C. Filling that in. And just because this is the way that Lori taught us, doesn't mean you have to do it that way. You could put in some little stripes or zigzags or polka dots. Anything you want. And I'm going to skip a layer and go to the next one. And then filling in those little areas in between and around. And I have room on the top just for one little circle, so I'm just going to do it. How did your first one turn out? Hopefully good. Hopefully you liked that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do my second one. Am I going too fast? Hopefully not. Okay. My second one, I'm going to let it bump into this one. So I'm going to have my triangle be here. Kind of like that. And of course the position can change, but just kind of getting rid of some of the space down here. Okay. All right. I'm going to imagine my line starting over here behind this one, and it would come out and give a curl. So I'm imagining where that corner would be over here. Put in that little cute shape at the end. Jump from this side over to here. And then from there, we're gonna come around and tuck in. And I love that little shape, how those kind of intersect and have this little dark area in between them. Then I'm doing those big C shapes that get smaller and smaller. And of course, we're not gonna see where that one ends, because it's gonna tuck in behind that one. Gonna ink in these little spaces. And then we're gonna put on the hats. So I'm gonna start out here, come around, and of course it would disappear behind there. Next one goes in a little bit. Now I can kind of figure out if I want this to tip this way off the page or I want it to tip up a little bit. I think I'm gonna go up a little. And I'm gonna put in those circles. I'm gonna do it from this side this time just because that's more comfortable for my hand, but it doesn't matter which way. That means I have to do backwards curves, backwards C's. Inking in all those little spots. Go to that and skip a level and go to the next one. All right, we've got 2 in there. I feel like I want to do 1 more up here. So the problem, not the problem, but you know, I just have to get a little bit creative with what shape I want and how I want it to fit. I don't want it to, it could be upside down, but it's gonna fit 2 kind of perfectly. So I wanna play around with maybe going like this. You decide. And if you don't want to put a 3rd one in, you can just pause. But I'm going to do a 3rd one. So remember, I need to have space underneath and then up above that shape. So let me see. What if I put mine like there? That might work. It gives me a good visual. I got that first curve done with the spiral. Put on the cap, scoop around. We've done this a few times now, so hopefully it's a little bit easier for you. And then you're putting in those C shapes that look like squished little circles. And then you put on the top hat. I'm going to purposely make mine go this way, like that. That fit in there pretty good. Still got a little bit of overlapping in. And I think for this one, just for time, I'm going to put in little sets of stripes to be a little bit different, to give a little bit of texture. And maybe I'll even put some dots. It looks kind of like a winter hat now, actually, doesn't it? Less like a seashell, more like a winter hat. All right, how did you do? That's a really fun one. That would look really great with some of the other seashell type things that we have done. Okay, I'm going to trace my border. If you went off your border at all or outside of it, then just lift your pen when you get to that spot. I'm going to grab an eraser and just get some of these pencil lines out of there from those little triangles that I made. All right, we're going to do some shading, but we're also going to do some stuff in the background, okay? So let's do the shading first. So to shade these and make them look less flat, we're going to start with this bottom part here, and I'm going to put a little bit of graphite underneath that base of the shell, but on top of these little rounded pieces. And then I'm also going to put a little bit underneath them. Not underneath, but at the bottom side of those. And what that's going to do, when I soften this and spread it out a little bit, is going to make that look really rounded and thick. Do you see that? Could even give a little bit of graphite right here where this little part tucks in and this part tucks in. Just if you want, kind of make those look like they are like interwoven. For the top part of this, I'm going to put a little bit on the left-hand side and a little bit on the right. And then I'm going to push that towards the center, but not all the way to the center, just a little bit. And now all of a sudden this shell looks rounded. You can always take your eraser too and get some of that out of the middle if you want. But having the dark back here and then having it get lighter makes that look rounded. So much better than these that look flat right now. And I know some of you are like, go back and ink those in. I just realized I didn't ink in my little spaces here, so I'll do that real quick. Okay, I did it. All right, I love that one. I'm going to do this one over here now. So I'm going to do right underneath the shell where these little circles start, and then the bottom section of each of these little circles, and maybe in those crevices. Gives it so much more dimension. And then this shell goes over this one, so I'm going to put a shadow here because it goes over. And then I'm going to do that left side of that shell right up against the edge, and that right side of the shell. Putting down that graphite, using whatever blending tool you have to soften that and to pull it towards the middle. So pretty. All right, I've got one more. Look how flat that one looks back there. Definitely needs some shading. Underneath the main part of the shell, and then at the bottom of these little orbs. Also, wherever there is shells going over it, give it a shadow. And I like to do it in these little C shapes. Okay, then I've got this left side and the right side that needs some graphite. Just soften them slightly, push them towards the middle a little bit. Okay, that looks pretty cool. All right, hopefully I didn't go too fast. I'm sorry if I did. You can pause it. All right, for the background of this one, you've got lots of options, but here's one thing I thought about doing is taking my pen and doing an inside aura. So this is a way to kind of make these little shells, I don't know, they kind of will overlap part of the frame, and instead of this being the frame out here, it'll kind of be in here. So watch what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put a dot in this corner and a dot in this corner. I can't see that one, but I can see that one. And I'm going to take my pen, go across, lift my pen, come out the other side, go down, lift, can't see there, and this way. See how that kind of makes it just look a little bit different? I like that. All right, on this inside part where I've got all this little white space, I'm just gonna put some little tiny dots with my pen, almost like beach sand. just giving it a little bit of texture without distracting from the beautiful shells that we just made. And then my blending tool already has some graphite on it, so I'm just gonna push that around a tiny bit. Oh, some of those like moved, it wasn't quite dry. That's okay. See how it has that little sandy look now? I like that. And I'm gonna take my pencil and go along the inside like we've been doing on the other ones. And that's gonna give it some depth. It almost reminds me of like the little shadow boxes that we just made with our kits, where we have like this maybe raised edge, and then down in here's a bunch of sand, like a little sand tray, and we tossed our shell findings in there. Soften those edges slightly. And one more thing. I'm going to go along the outside edge a little bit as well this time, because that's going to make that little white frame be nice and bright and kind of pop out. Want that little frame, that little thin frame, to be nice and white and bright. All right, just a fun technique to add a little bit narrower frame. Always add your initials. On the back, you can write the date that you made this, and you can also write the names of the tangles. This one just has the one, so it's Konk by Lori Manouchian, CZT, and what a fun one. All right, tomorrow will be episode 10. If you are interested in commercial-free videos, you can follow me on Patreon. I will link it below in the description of this video. My Patreon is $5 a month, but you get all of this series and the May Florals series of this year, and then videos going forward will be placed on here daily. Well, not daily, but as I make them for YouTube, they'll be placed on here on the Patreon, and for $5, you can watch them without those pesky commercials. So join me there if you would like, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.